We've prepared our flask and now we need to fill it with plaster. And this is our plaster mixing machine. Again, it's a complicated looking piece of machinery, but there's nothing really complicated about it at all. Top chamber is where the plaster's mixed. Bottom chamber in there is where we pour the plaster through our valve just here in the nozzle. It's all done under a vacuum. What the vacuum does is you don't want any air in the plaster if you can possibly avoid it, because any air bubbles that are left attached to the surface of the wax will create a void in the plaster and that will get cast into your casting. So, and by creating a vacuum both in the mixing and in the pouring chambers, we avoid, hopefully, any air will come out of the solution. So first thing to do with this machine is make sure it's all turned off. This top chamber, it's got some blades in it just like a mixer, and if you accidentally turn those on, get your hand caught in it, can be really nasty. So plug point around the back here, it's got a cover on it. Make sure both are turned off so you can't turn it on accidentally. This is a switch to turn it on and it's not turning the blades on. And the notes here will help you completely take you through the whole process of using this machine. The first thing is you need to measure out the correct amount of plaster, correct amount of water to mix the right volume of plaster that you can fill the flask with. The amounts are just here, so the large flask we're using needs 250 grams, 2,050 grams of plaster.
Say that again.
So the large flask needs 2,050 grams of plaster and 779 millilitres of water. But we also add a small amount extra because there's always a little bit left in the bottom of the machine. So for each mix, that's not for each flask, but for each mix you make, we add 300 grams of plaster and 140 millilitres of water. It doesn't have to be that accurate, but just that bit more. So again, done this already. I've measured out the plaster, put it in a plastic bag, sealed it so it's not going to go everywhere, and I've measured out the correct amount of water. First thing I need to do before I mix the plaster though is put my flask in. So I need to position this flask in this lower chamber. So I've got the nozzle over one of these gaps just here so I can pour it down the side. And I also want to try and pour it down the side and try not to hit my waxes because potentially the plaster can knock the waxes off. To reveal the lower chamber, lift this up and you can swing it sideways. So I'll take my flask, place it in the chamber, initially estimate where I think the nozzle is going to be, and then I'll swing the nozzle across. I'll swing this back and see if I've got the nozzle aligned. So when that's across, move that around a bit. I want to rotate that a little bit more, just that way. So when that's centred, that's not bad. That should be okay. It's going to pour out of the nozzle straight down into the flask. So double check, I've got my rubber sleeve on before I lock this down. To get a good seal, I'm going to use a little bit of detergent. This is in a squirt just a little bit onto my hand. Just run it around the edge there. Get it right around both sides. I'll swing that across and get it around the edge here as well. And to seal that chamber down, keep a good hold of that while I pull the handle forwards, and that lowers the top half down to the bottom half, and that's now sealed the chamber. That will get pushed down even more by atmospheric pressure as soon as the vacuum is pulled. So now we're going to mix our plaster in the top chamber. We know the machine's turned off, so take the lid off. It's just a little Perspex lid, put that to one side. First thing to do, this has got mixing blades, just to make sure that they sat down correctly. So the mixing blades come off. This has got a little groove in the bottom here, which locates it onto a little T-bar on the thing. If that isn't located, if it's located off centre, when you start mixing, it will slip into position and these will be all loose. So I always check, just in case someone hasn't replaced them correctly, make sure that that's locked down and sat in position. If you can cut out any mistakes, then do. Next thing to do, make sure your valve is closed. It's quite important. If the valve is closed when it's at right angle to the flow of the channel. It's open. I'm just going to check there's no water in there. That's the open position. That's the closed position. Water in first, Everything's closed up nice and tight, so pour my water in. That all goes in. And my plaster. You can wear a mask to do this, but if you're careful, if you tip it right in and shake it in, then you shouldn't generate too much dust. Try not to get the actual plastic bag in the water. So it's not too much dust. And we want to get this mixing as quickly as possible so we don't get any. Same thing, make sure this has got a bit of a seal around it, so we put a decent vacuum. Perspex top back on. So we're ready to mix. This will turn the vacuum pump on as well, so it'll start making quite a loud noise. So now I can start the mixer mixing. You'll be able to see the blades mixing in there. Now I need to pull the vacuum. So on the front of the machine I need to close the system, so I push that down to the close position, and I need to pull the vacuum on, and you'll see the dial here creep up as the vacuum's pulled. You can hear it's beginning to pull air out of the cylinder. You see this as this creeps up. That's air evacuating from the chambers effectively. And hopefully that means we'll have no air bubbles next to our castings. And we leave that for 5 minutes. And hopefully after 5 minutes we'll have a nice smooth plaster that we'll be able to pour into our flask. Right, so the plaster's had some time to mix. I'm going to lift the handle and release it into the flask below. What I'm going to try and do is get it to go almost down the side of the flask, so I'm not dropping the plaster straight onto the waxes, because it can actually knock the wax off. So initially I'm going to crouch down and try and get it to, yeah, so if you look now you can see it just dribbling down the side of the flask. You see it? Yeah. So I know that's fine, so I'm going to open it up a bit more. Right, so it'll take some time to get to the top because it's quite a big flask. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and shut it off so that the plaster is touching the underside of these crossbars here, and they have a purpose in that they stop the bottom of the flask blowing out during the casting process. So they're coming quite close to the top. And also hopefully the plaster raising up has chased any air from around the waxes as well, if there is any air left in the chamber. So I'm going to close it down. We still got air bubbles in here. You can see air bubbles on the top, which isn't a good sign. So I'm going to shut that off. We've got slightly uneven. So it's just touching it up and around the bars now. These air bubbles here show that we haven't had a perfect mix actually, and there shouldn't be air bubbles in the mix. The vacuum isn't pulling perfectly. I deliberately set the waxes not flat like that, but on their sides, because if they're flat like that, any air bubbles can get caught under the broader surface of the coins and can't release up the side, and you potentially get air bubbles on the bottom side. So if I turn them like that, hopefully the little air bubbles will run off the sides, and they're less resistance basically. So I deliberately put them around that way, not that way. So once the plaster's poured, push the purple handle back as before. That will release the top chamber and just swing it aside. Then you want to lift your flask out carefully, and that comes over to one side. You just leave that till the plaster goes off completely.